That was the reaction of passengers who were delayed after their pilot was arrested for murder. Christian Martin was taken into custody at Louisville International Airport just before takeoff, charged with the murder of 3 former neighbors.
The indictment stems from events that occurred around November 18, 2015, in which Calvin Phillips was found shot to death in his home located in Pembroke, Kentucky. The bodies of Mr. Phillips' wife, Pamela, and their neighbor, Edward DeSanero, were found a few miles away in a cornfield in a burned-up car owned by Mrs. Phillips.
Prosecutors say that Calvin Phillips was set to testify against Martin, who was facing a court-martial on sex abuse charges brought by his wife, Joan Harmon.
I told her at that point that I just wanted a divorce. I didn't want to go through this anymore.
This is Martin talking to Air Force author and blogger Bob McCarty 2 months before the murders.
And her immediate response was, and I quote, if you divorce me, I will ruin your career. I will ruin your life. I know how to do it.
Martin claims his ex-wife, Joan Harmon, made up the claims of abuse after he sought a divorce from her. He says those weren't the only lies she told.
I found out that she wasn't even my wife.
That's because Harmon was still legally married to someone else before she married Martin in 2004. Martin sought the help of the National Coalition for Men, an advocacy group, to help him fight the sexual assault allegations.
And he had been in the Army for over 2 decades. And to my knowledge, without a blemish. He's what we call a hero. He was committed, totally committed to his career, totally committed to the country. And he wanted to be totally committed to a family. Unfortunately, he picked the wrong person.
A military court acquitted Martin of the more serious charges of sexual assault, but found him guilty of lesser assault charges and a misdemeanor count of mishandling classified information. Calvin Phillips, who was supposed to testify at the proceeding, never did. He was murdered a few weeks before the hearing.
There to sort things out.
This is Calvin's sister, testifying at an evidentiary hearing in Martin's murder case.
At that point in time, then I really stepped back and I was very upset.
Diana Phillips says she found this shell casing during a visit to her brother's house 5 months after his death. Prosecutors claim it is evidence that links Martin to the crime scene.
Now, what's going on here, Ms. Phillips?
Myron is taking a picture of the casing.
The defense argues the evidence has nothing to do with the murders and questions how it got there.
The state police were concerned enough about the manner in which this was supposedly recovered that they subjected the witness to a polygraph.
The case against Martin has taken years to put together. It seemed to go cold until authorities took him into custody 4 years later in 2019. The effort to prosecute Martin driven in part by family members seeking justice.
And I can tell you that if you were in my shoes, you would want to pay attention to anything at the place where your parents lost your life that you could. The last thing that you would want to do is sweep away any shred of evidence that would be material in a case.
What a case. A lot of sub-stories taking place, the relationships amongst all these people. I'm hearing different versions of what those relationships were like. So a lot of this will have to play out inside the courtroom. And joining us from Elizabethtown, Kentucky tonight, Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae is with us. Julia, let's start with where we are right now. It's taken a long time to get here, but we have a jury.
Vinny, a jury has been sworn in by this court, a jury panel of 14. 2 of those are alternates. They're not going to know that they are alternates until the end of this trial, and their makeup is 10 men, 4 women. The majority of them are white and in their 50s, and they will be returning here tomorrow to the Hardin County Justice Center to hear the opening statements in the case against Christian Kit Martin.
So we're ready to go. All of this investigation and court martials and pieces of evidence found months later. We are set to go opening statements tomorrow, but it's going to be in the afternoon, right? Because there's still some issues they got to deal with in the morning.
There's still an outstanding issue. 4 statements by the victims that were made before their death that the prosecution wants to get in front of this jury. The defense says they are hearsay and cannot come in. So they're actually going to hold what's really a mini trial tomorrow morning starting at 9, where the prosecution has to make their arguments that it's more likely than not, preponderance of the evidence is the burden of proof for this mini trial, that Christian Martin was the one who caused the witnesses or the victims to be unavailable. So that's the reason that there's this hearsay exception that should allow these statements to come in for the jury. So essentially the court is going to have to agree one way or the other if Martin was involved in their deaths.
That's an amazing preview for what's going to take place over the next several weeks in this case. When you have this mini trial, both sides are going to have to lay some of their evidence out there in front of the jury. So let's talk about the courtroom, right? We've been going around courtrooms around the country, and they've all had different types of rules, whether someone's wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, social distance. Is the jury in the room? What are the rules here in Kentucky right now for this trial?
Vinny, I got to tell you, it's like we've turned a corner or starting to turn a corner, because so many of the jury rooms that we've been in lately, or courtrooms where they're doing jury selection, the process has to be so different because of the COVID-19 restrictions. But in this courthouse, the judge even commented that they actually did things a little bit differently than the order that he initially put out for jury selection in this case, because the state rules have relaxed. So there were more jurors who were allowed inside the courtroom during the selection process. So there was a pool of 70 in this morning, and they were really shoulder to shoulder at some points. That's because for this courthouse, the rule is if you've been vaccinated, that you don't have to wear a mask. We did not see many people who were wearing masks today, but the court is still adhering to social distancing guidelines in general. I still see some chairs that are roped off so that you can't sit next to different people when you're sitting in the hallways. But the judge did say that that's a reason that jury selection went a lot quicker today. They thought it would take days. They were able to seat one in a full day because they didn't have to ask this jury a lot of the questions that they've been asking recently about whether or not they feel comfortable sitting on a jury panel during a pandemic.
And I noticed the defendant not wearing a mask, and I presume that the witnesses may very well not be wearing masks either.
You get the sense that they won't. Maybe they will be asked if they have been vaccinated or if they feel comfortable not wearing their mask, but we're not seeing the plexiglass that we've seen in a lot of courtrooms. It just is different than what we've seen in the recent months, and that is due to the fact that statewide here in Kentucky, those rules have changed.
Unbelievable. I mean, this is pretty close to normal, this trial, to where we were before all this happened last year. Okay, let's get back to the case now. Big piece of evidence, this shell casing. Judge making a huge ruling. Let's take a listen.
As has been pointed out, the witnesses are going to be subject to rigorous cross-examination over the circumstances of the location and examination of this evidence. I find that the shell casing is admissible. I find no defect in the chain of custody of the evidence, and reiterate that this is a factual situation that will be subject to vigorous and rigorous cross-examination at the trial.
All right, what I want to do, Julia, is understand this shell casing, the role that it plays in all this. Do we believe that prosecutors can link this shell casing to the defendant?
They're going to try to. This is the shell casing of a Glock 45, and that is the type of gun that was used to kill Calvin Phillips. It was also the type of gun that was found in the home of Christian Martin, the defendant, when his home was searched the day after the bodies were discovered. So they will be trying to make that connection to this casing to the bodies to Christian Martin, but it is not something they definitively have an answer on that we've seen in the court filings as far as the analysis from forensic experts.
Okay, now there's a huge story behind this shell casing. There was a big hearing. Let's take a listen because it was the victim's sister, Diana Phillips, who actually found it at the victim's home. Let's take a listen.
I was picking up the wood and I was taking certainly each piece and trying to pick that up. And then at the very bottom of the wood pile, which was it's like molding and border, like for the walls. That's whenever I saw an item. I now know what the name of it is. I didn't know what the name of it was at the time, but that would be a casing.
At the time, what did you think it was?
I wasn't sure, but I thought it might be important. And so I immediately went to Matt, who was I think it was in the front yard, but I immediately went to Matt and said, I need you to come here and take a look at something.
The police wanted to know all the circumstances about how this was supposedly found when they talked to you, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And there was enough concern about those circumstances that they asked you to do a polygraph.
Yes, sir.
Judge, I think that this is important for the court to know in order to weigh this issue regarding the chain of custody, specifically that the state police were concerned enough about the manner in which this was supposedly recovered that they subjected the witness to a polygraph.
Objection sustained.
Would it change the court's ruling, Your Honor, if the court knew that, in fact, the witness did not pass the polygraph?
Holy mackerel. So they believe, or they're kind of laying out there that she failed a polygraph about this shell casing. But let's get to what the defense is going to do here now, because the shell casing is coming in. Are they going to insinuate or allege that the shell casing was planted by the victim's family to set up the defendant here?
They call it suspicious and mysterious how this shell casing got into the home of Calvin Phillips, which is where he was killed. But yes, we can expect that that's what the defense is going to argue. They want to say that there's a chain of custody problem. Not only that the family members found it 4 months later after detectives had already searched the home in this murder investigation, but also the fact that they then called a state representative to come there to look at this shell casing, Myron Dossett, the representative for the area, and then the officers show up to take it into custody or take that evidence. So they are questioning how it got there, and you can imagine in front of this jury, they are going to say it doesn't have anything to do with the murders, but even if it did, it's questionable as far as how it got there.
Okay, well, there is some security footage. Let's look at this together, Julie J. This first piece of footage is from 1:22 p.m., and apparently Diana Phillips sees the shell casing and then walks into the house, but where she sees it is just out of view of the video, right?
Right. She saw it in an area where there was some wood, and she testified that, actually Matt Phillips, the son of the victims, he testified that these cameras aren't pointing in the way that area is because it's really in a corner, and that wouldn't be a typical place that you would have a camera. The camera is there at the entrance or exit of the home.
Okay, so about a half hour later, that's when the state representative, I don't know why there's a state representative showing up, but shows up and they kind of point to him where it all is, and he's taking some evidence photos. Is that what's going on here?
That is what's going on. I can tell you that Matt Phillips has testified in previous hearings that the reason that they call their state representative is they been in communication with him throughout the investigation, trying to get justice for their family members. And this is a very small town. Elizabethtown has about 876 people as far as the population. And it's not uncommon in a smaller area, smaller district, that you know your representative very well, that they are easy to get on the phone, and this situation can come out when they're in distress.
Okay, so I mean that makes some level of sense, and I guess he brings some credibility to the whole situation. But the people you really want there are the investigators. And about an hour later, a deputy shows up. Let's take a look at what happens here, and he's got the evidence bag with him.
Exactly, that is what is happening. They are taking that shell casing, putting it into evidence, and that is where it has been sent. So this is the chain of custody that the prosecution will be emphasizing, but the defense has a problem with the fact that it's being found 5 months after. This is April of 2016. The murders happened in November of 2015.
So the two questions are, number one, is this shell casing connected directly to his gun through ballistics, or is it just the same type and they can't get that specific? And then the other part of that is, did the victim's family know what type of weapon was used at that point?
You know, it is likely that they knew, because there, of course, would have been an autopsy report of their loved ones. This is 5 months later. I don't know for sure if they would have known exactly what type of gun was used, but we know that the testifying officer at the grand jury indictment, or the grand jury proceeding that resulted in an indictment, he let them know that they were aware of what type of gun was used to kill the victims, and that information was more readily available than other information like DNA and the analysis of the cell phones. That took a lot more time to come back. So it is possible that other people knew about the type of bullet, but that has not been made clear on the record. Likely something that will be used in the cross-examination of Diana Phillips, the sister, when she takes the stand.
Oh, absolutely. Big time. This is, again, this is an amazing trial to try to figure out what's going to happen in the courtroom, because I really can't get a handle for it, because the defense has their own version of everything that's happening here. The defendant has given interviews, and we've gotten a sneak peek of that. So this is a case where the evidence has to play out in the courtroom, and you've got to see what happens during the cross-examination. Even some of the experts. I mean, this is going to be a tough one for prosecutors. It's winnable, but it all starts tomorrow, correct?
Starts tomorrow in the morning, 9 o'clock. Court TV cameras will be inside, rolling on that all-important mini trial to see if those statements are going to come in, some statements that were made by the victims before their death. And then at 1 o'clock, this jury is going to come to hear those opening statements. All
right, Julie Janae in Kentucky tonight. Thank you. When we come back, we're going to talk about a story, big story out of Texas, involving a 6-year-old boy who went missing. Samuel Olson's his name. He goes missing, and now his father's girlfriend gets arrested at a motel because at the motel they find a little boy in a tote bag. So what exactly is going on here? We're going to get all the details next.